friends, welcome to The Legacy. Today we're going to talk about the Christmas story, which is obviously one of the most familiar stories in the whole Bible, and rightfully so. But a lot of times because of that familiarity, we can overlook the rich amount of material that is maybe lies just beneath the surface that gets kind of buried in the way we traditionally tell the story. In our last edition, I laid the groundwork by taking a look at Jesus' mother Mary and his virgin birth and how important that is to the gospel story. And if you haven't watched that, it would be a good idea to go back and refresh yourself on it. But today we're going to look at the very fascinating and diverse group of people that were involved in the Christmas story. As we pick up Mary and Joseph, who, as we previously discussed, were both the descendants of King David, were called back to the city of David, of Bethlehem, to take part in the Roman census. The name Bethlehem means house of bread, and it was about 100 miles from Mary and Joseph's hometown of Nazareth. So that would have been a very long and difficult journey, especially given the fact that Mary was very pregnant. And to make matters worse, once they got there, there was no room in the boarding house or the inn for them. But even that was an act of God's providence when we see who the first people God chose to reveal the message to were. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. Bethlehem was along the trade route between, the people commonly traveled between Egypt and Jerusalem. And there had been an inn there since the time of King David to accommodate the large number of people who made this journey. When there was no room available, it really wasn't unusual for people to sleep outside in the courtyard or in the stable area where the people would keep their caravan animals, and Mary and Joseph did have to avail themselves of this option. So with that in mind, it's interesting to note that the first people that received the good news of Jesus' birth were shepherds working on a night watch. But an often overlooked prophecy lets us know that these were no ordinary shepherds. The Book of Micah, chapter 4, verse 8, foretells that the Messiah would be revealed from the Migdol Eder, or the Tower of the Flock, which was a watchtower near the area where the lambs for the Jewish Passover ceremony were kept. So the shepherds responsible for these special lambs were the first ones called to see the one who would be our true Passover lamb. Isn't that powerful? Jewish law had strict guidelines regarding the condition of the sacrificial animals. They had to be totally without blemish or defect of any kind. So for that purpose, the lambs were wrapped in things known as swaddling cloths to keep them from thrashing around injuring themselves. So when the shepherds arrived and saw the baby wrapped in these kind of cloths, there was no doubt in their mind what they were looking at. Probably the most misunderstood people in the entire Nativity story, and that's the Magi, or the wise men. Although our modern nativity scenes show them as being at the manger, they actually weren't at the manger at all. At the time they arrived, they visit the Holy Family in a house rather than a stable, and Jesus is described as being a young child rather than an infant. He may have been up to 2 years old at the time that they got there. The Magi were an order of priests and scientists from the region of Persia that we now know as modern Iran. In the Old Testament, we read about the tragic events that led up to the Jews being carried away to the nation of Babylon in captivity. Well, eventually the Babylonian Empire was overthrown by the Persian Empire. And one of the key people living in Persia at the time was the prophet Daniel. And he did work with the Magi, and he may very well have been the one that introduced them to the Hebrew scriptures about the coming Messiah. Now, tradition tells us there were 3 wise men, but of course we don't know how many there were. And the common image of them as 3 guys just carrying small gift boxes coming through wouldn't have caused anywhere near the kind of stir these men did. And we'll talk about that more in our next session. Magi were men of tremendous political influence and prestige, and one of their titles were, and keep this in mind because we'll be talking about next lesson, kingmakers. The gifts they brought to Jesus, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, were common gifts given to honor new kings. Some theologians, or many theologians, and I agree, will also believe that they have symbolic meaning as well. Gold, of course, being Jesus' role as the King of Kings. Incense, meaning his role as the great high priest. And myrrh was a perfume made of the gum of various trees. It was used, among other things, to anoint the dead for burial, which obvious symbolism there as well. And of course, in large enough quantities, these gifts carried enormous monetary value, enough to abundantly fund Jesus' ministry for life. Again, we'll pick up here in the next session when we talk about Jesus' early years. But as we go through these studies, I hope you'll be inspired to dig deeper than what you might have been taught through the years. When it comes to something of this magnitude, it's important that we don't let our traditional religious understandings of things keep us from what God really has for us. So we'll hope you stay with us on the studies. Of course, like and subscribe to our channel and tell your friends. In the meantime, keep it real.